I'm Great Mannix. I'm a senior IT consultant in the Department of Education, Children and Young People. We're on a small team called the End Device team. We manage basically the Intune platform for the agency. So our Windows devices historically have been managed by config manager, group policy, or Active Directory, so that older style setup. In our eyes, an older style setup. And so that's been what the last 10 years we've been utilizing config manager. Turning the wheel, I guess, over with config manager just wasn't progressing us anywhere. No, there was no future direction. We weren't seeing new wow factor features. We were finding other areas within the agency were going cloud directions. And so we're like, look, from our device management, we've got to start moving in a more modernized direction. And so in Intune, there was definitely some other products that came on the tables, and we did trial some of the other products, but we kept on coming back to Intune. In particular because of the licensing, definitely a big driver on that. So just to give it a bit of scope is 216 physical sites. So they physically had a server, they physically had a distribution point, and then we had about 13 management servers to help maintain that. Some of that gear was aging, so not always stable, and so to keep the upkeep of that config manager instance was part of that driving force of going, look, we actually need to be looking at something different. We're looking at our options out there. And that's when we started heading towards that Intune direction. We started off with the Intune platform to replace our MDM platform for our Apple devices. And so that happened back in, it would be 2021 or just slightly before then, where we had 10,000 Apple devices on an old management platform that we needed to get across to something more modernized that was more reliable and stable. And so we started the journey with the Apple devices, and then we've slowly started coming in the last couple of years on the Windows side of things. One big benefit was that we are a pretty heavy user of Microsoft products, so the licensing fell within our scope, I guess, a suite of options. So it was a big player. So we are already paying for Intune, just not using it. So having config manager there, we were eligible to be able to switch over to basically start using Intune. So we went down that path. Intune being a brand new area, new platform, and having a lot of unknowns, we first had to kind of, what's the best word, to make sure that we're confident that the actual system would actually do what it says it's doing. We'd heard, I guess, previously in the past that it was constantly maturing. And so we're like, well, what maturity level is Intune at now? So there was a lot of testing done off the side of the desk just to make ourselves confident that when we tick Windows updates, it actually achieves exactly what we're expecting it to achieve. Replacing those 216 distribution points and going, all right, we don't want to use those distribution points and we want to push all these Windows updates or drivers out. How's that going to actually look? Is it going to flood our WAN links? We've got a whole heap of limitations with our WAN link. So we first did a lot of making sure we were confident ourselves prior to pushing it out. When we were first looking at Intune and doing the comparison of the different settings, we did actually test some of the group policy mergers in particular. So we're going through and going, look, we need Wi-Fi, we need these group policy settings, we need these printers, SCEP, all those type of things that we need to be working, we need to migrate across. So we did actually start using the Intune group policy migrate tool, and it was actually finding that a lot of the stuff wasn't actually matching up. So we ended up just doing it, what's our bare minimum? What are the bare minimum requirements that we actually need for a device to function? And so it kind of got us in a bit more of a modernized mindset of going, what we used to do in the past is not necessarily what we actually want to be doing in the future. So we ended up heading down the path of not using the co-management components in config manager and going completely clean, fresh, an Azure AD join device. It's always hard to sell a product when things aren't broken. So in this particular case, a lot of the stuff wasn't broken, but we noticed some changes in like our Office 365 channel. Dare I say, was on a semi-annual. With the Intune one, we're going, okay, anything that's in Intune is going to get the latest and greatest. So if that's patching quicker, if it's the latest Office channel updates, having the latest drivers, so like from a stability point of view, they're getting more of those benefits. And so we kind of bounced backwards and forwards a little bit in early days of where do we actually set our security policies. But one thing that Intune has had a big benefit to is we've had a security baseline out of box. And so we've basically gone, all right, we're starting fresh. What do we want the security baseline to be? We're going, oh, Intune's got it. So we'd basically create that policy, target the devices and go, all right, from an end user perspective, what things are going to impact them? Is there anything that we need to tweak? What other things are we missing? And so we ended up using pretty much the out of box settings as much as possible as in the default settings within that security baseline. We then went through and go the stuff that we've got in config manager. So we had there's AV settings, we attack surface reduction. We're going, oh, this will be interesting. Does Intune have all this? And in that endpoint security, and it was really nice that it was actually segmented off to its own section. So we basically went through all the stuff we had in config manager and replicated it, plus it added more. So there were some features that we thought we had and didn't have, in particular, like the security baseline. We're like, oh, we were not too bad, but it actually highlighted some weaknesses that we weren't actually applying at the time. Yeah, the security baseline out of box in particular it was literally like click to actually create the policy, and to be honest, we actually trusted that from the get go. It's not too bad timing wise just to go through and skim through and go, yep, these are the settings we want, these are the ones we don't. And to be honest, I think we only turned off 2 settings initially, and they were just because we have some aging methods within the agency that we needed to uplift. But yeah, the actual maintenance of that security baseline, haven't touched it since the last security baseline. So there's a nice feature in there where you can, if Microsoft releases a new baseline, you can do upgrade, and it will show you what changes or what settings will actually be included in that new security baseline update. So definitely a big time saver. Yeah, with the Intune data warehouse issues where we were hitting those limitations, we ended up using the export feature. One big benefit, I guess, of Intune is the Graph API, and so we're able to do a very automated process of exporting the required data to be able to report on that, and that simplified the process. It met all our goals that we required from a reporting perspective, or all the software applications, all the OS info, really hit the mark, and so. That's what we're doing today. It's been extremely useful. We can go to that granular level and integrate with our CMDB. If we talk about the tasks or things that we might have done in the config manager world and what we do in the Intune world, like almost, dare I say, every morning there was some sort of health check to go, are our distribution points working healthy? Do we have any clients that are broken? To make sure that day to day the system was functioning. Can a site push software out? Simple things like that. And so now in this Intune world, basically we're not needing to care about that anymore because it just works, dare I say. And so that time where we were having issues with space issues on servers, or that config manager client constantly breaking for whatever reason. It could be that we had like a domain controller rebuild or something. There was always a scenario every single day of a reason why a site wasn't functioning in a healthy state. And so now in this Intune world is basically going, mate, don't need to touch it. It's just working. We're not now relying on those distribution points or config manager at all. So it's definitely been a massive time saver. Now we're actually looking at more the more granular, the health state, the stuff that we haven't been able to do in the past. So a big weakness that we've had in the past is drivers on our devices. We didn't have a really good method to update our drivers. the firmware as another part. Like I really highlighted with the TPM, the 2.0 requirement, that we actually not only needed the TPM, but we also needed it to be in a healthy state, and that cross-reference, the BIOS needed to be healthy, and we're going, oh, how are we going to do this? And so we've been working with vendors in particular around making sure they're publishing it through the Windows Update for Business, and so that it would come down through there. We're utilizing some of their tool sets to help meet those goals. We're just doing customized deployment rings to do our patching, and to be honest, it's meeting all the marks. We try to patch quite quickly, like within a 7-day period, and so it's working for us. When setting up the Windows Update for Business policies, I was actually quite concerned because Config Manager, it actually worked quite well, but when you actually go into Intune and you set them up, it was actually simpler than I actually expected it to be. Doing a comparison, I guess, with Config Manager, you've got to worry about like the ADR, the queries, the product selection, all that type of stuff, making sure the content's out there, all the spacing. With Intune, I pretty much, an example is like Windows 11. Config Manager, I normally have to upgrade the whole instance. So all the distribution points, you're talking those 200 plus servers. In Intune, I wanted to upgrade or support Windows 11 within the fleet. And I go in there and I go, tick, and basically we're up and running. So I could actually push Windows Update without needing to worry about all the behind the scenes, the technical side of things with a tick box. Clearly needing drivers and testing drivers, a side thing to that, but it definitely from a speed point of view, it saved like months worth of work and testing from just that configuration and setup of supporting a new operating system. When we first started migrating sites over, we had two interests. Is one from a technical point of view to go, is this actually creating more work for technicians? So I'll just put an example here is when devices would rock up, you press your F12, Pixie boot, lay down like a SOE image, and so a device might take 20 minutes to an hour or more to actually set up the device. And we're going, look, from that technical point of view, are we creating additional work going over to this Intune world? We're now at a place where a lot of the prep work, recent ones, is the vendors are actually setting them up in the Intune autopilot. They're rocking up to site and they're actually already ready to go. So it's already got all the apps. Literally, a technician is handing it to an end user, or in theory, a end user could be grabbing that box and unboxing it. So from the technical side and the setup side, it definitely has reduced that time to get a device ready because we're getting the vendors to do a lot of that with the autopilot side of things. Where there's definitely a couple of scenarios out there where we're not getting our vendors to do, I guess, the autopilot, turning it on beforehand stage. And from that, a local technician is turning the device on and it's already in autopilot. We've got some automation where the vendor basically does the autopilot enrollment and does some tagging there automatically, hooks into our CMDB, and it's literally a technician turns it on and it's already setting up. It's to that degree. From a end user perspective, like our ticket numbers was actually noticed by management that they have actually decreased. To what level? We need to go into a bit more detail to get the granular numbers and percentages, but it was like, hey, we're actually noticing like our end device support calls have dropped a considerable amount. Which is fantastic news to hear. We'll definitely do something in Intune first before we even touch Config Manager. And in most cases, like, it's so much easier and quicker to do, like, I think about application packaging in Intune. I can do an application in Intune and get it to an end user like within 5 minutes, dare I say, using like the Intune package, like using an MSI, presenting it to the end user being able to go to the company portal, pressing that sync button and actually pressing install. It's so much quicker compared to Config Manager, where it could be hours by the time we package it up, copy it to a network share, push it at the distribution, collections needing to update, that type of stuff. But the initial testing, MAM looks amazing. So we've been doing the testing in the Android and the Apple space, and that segmentation of our data is it's crazy how easy it is, and the amount of applications that are actually listed in there. I swear I checked many years ago, and the list was not that long. Nowadays, it was like over 100 applications that were supported in that MAM interface.